everybody.
Hey everyone. So welcome to the second episode of Anti-Natal News. We are your hosts, Lawrence and Amanda, reporting on the news both in the antenatal world and the world around us for February 2021 now. So remember, you can also follow us on the Anti-Natal News Twitter account. That's just at Anti-Natal News, and that's for daily updates of things that are going on. And if you have any news yourself that you want to, just let us know about, you can contact us at antinatalnews@gmail.com. But do keep in mind that, we're not going to fit everything in. We're reporting on choice stories of the month, and a lot happens in the month, so we can't talk about everything in the podcast itself. And if you want to see everything that's been going on this month, not just what we're talking about in the podcast itself, you can head over to the Anti-Natalism International website, go to initiatives, then Anti-Natal News, then episode 2, and there's a full list of everything that we've found that's been going on this month. So head over there if you want that.
Before we begin today, I do have some sad news. One of our biggest supporters of both the podcast and Anti-Natalism International has sadly died. Mustafa Killet, I believe he also went by the name Nihilism Genie on Facebook and perhaps various other places, unfortunately died sometime this month. He would always leave the exact same but extremely encouraging comments on all of ANI's videos. He was just really one of our most supportive patrons, viewers, audience members, and we're really going to miss him a lot. So Mustafa, we dedicate this episode to you. We miss you. We'll miss seeing your comments. Thank you for all of the support that you gave Anti-Natalism International and the podcast and everything that we were doing. And I hope that your memory lives on. Okay, quick update to some January news that we missed. As you guys know, some stories from the previous month will kind of get lost in the mire because we have to record this thing and edit it at some point. So we'll always have some part of the podcast, each episode, sort of covering the big stuff that we missed from the last month. So two big things. Seven of Swords, who's actually one of our moderators on the Anti-Natalism International Discord and also a anti-natalist YouTuber, had a very, very, very long episode, did a very, very long video with Perspective Philosophy. It was 4 hours, 44 minutes and 53 seconds discussing the topic of anti-natalism. It was really quite an epic marathon. I have not got to listen to the entire thing yet, but it's really good. It's called Better Never to Have Been, discussing anti-natalism with Seven of Swords, again on the Perspective Philosophy channel. So go check that out. Another very interesting thing that happened in January that we missed last time was that there was a new piece of anti-natalism related music, this time by a band or recording artist by the name of Pathognosis. I'm probably saying that wrong. I found this over at Bandcamp. The song is the name of the song is Proselitismo Antinatalista. And it's just some badass Italian anti-natalist black metal. I love it. So definitely go check that out below.
Cool. So the first story we're going to cover is actually a new magazine that's just been launched. So I presume you can order it in a physical copy, but I'm just viewing it as an online digital copy, and it's the new magazine Childfree Magazine. So its first issue has just come out for February 2021. The founder and publisher of it is a lady called Tanya Williams, and it's a very modern looking magazine. It's very trendy. It has a lot of pieces in it from different contributors. I haven't read much of it in detail, but it seems to be a lot of lifestyle sort of commentary. It has links to different organizations in it. So Childfree India, which of course Pratima and Anugrah and Tejas, who are founders of Annie, are also involved in Childfree India. So it's nice to see it linked in there. But it's if you're interested in reading magazines and having a flick through, then this one is obviously going to be probably one of the most relevant ones.
No, it's good. I mean, it's kind of exciting news. Like, there should be a magazine for being child free. I mean, it's definitely a hole that needed to be filled. So I'm glad somebody is out there doing it. I don't expect that they will in any way take perhaps some interest in the greater anti-procreative world, although that would be interesting. Perhaps there's some way of seeing if we could solicit some interest for a conversation within that magazine, because it's important for the different anti-procreative perspectives to talk, and that would be an interesting platform for such a discussion. But regardless, like, good on them for or good on her, I should say, for getting it done. Okay, so now I think we're ready to move on to a look at the articles that came out in February. These are articles about antinatalism that came out in English for this month. There were actually quite a lot of them this month, actually, and some really interesting and important ones. My original intention actually was to sort of go through one or two of them in a bit of detail. But since there are so many, and since it would be really quite remiss of me to not mention them, all of them, or a lot of them at least here, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to basically go through a list of the ones that you should check out, maybe say a word or two about each. So the first one was, is it morally wrong to have children? A Stoic response to the antinatalism argument by Figs and Water. Now, this article was on medium.com, and it was a bit of a response, actually, to the article that we covered last time in the first episode of this podcast.
Yeah, it was published on Junkie. I can't remember the name of the actual article, but yeah, it was on Junkie.
Yeah, that's right, Junkie, and we'll post a link to that article again. But yeah, so this was very interesting. It basically is saying that antinatalism is not compatible with Stoicism, because if we're antinatalists and we're about extinction, then we can't. It has nothing to do with working towards like the virtues, and we can't have that. So yeah, so it was interesting, an antinatal or a Stoic take on antinatalism. I of course don't agree in any way, shape, or form, but a very interesting peek into their side of things. The next article was, "What is Antinatalism Good For?" by R.N. Carmona on naturalistphilosophy.wordpress.com. This was not a very good article, I have to say. And there was quite a bit of pushback to it on some of the antinatalism Facebook groups. He talks about Belshaw and Benatar, and how antinatalism isn't compatible with other beliefs that he thinks other people might have. So he makes makes a lot of claims, but he makes a claim that veganism is incompatible with antinatalism because, they want extinctionism, and extinctionism can't be vegan. So, and he just sort of mixes up a lot of, he just has no understanding of a lot of the nuance to a lot of these arguments. He seems to sort of get them all mixed up in some sort of salad of indiscriminate parts. Another example of somebody playing with this word promortalism in, I feel to be, rather bizarre ways. And he's very upset that this isn't compatible with neo-Kantianism. And that's I don't know what to say about that. So go check out that article though. It is a nice long article, and it would be nice to see some more response to it, to be perfectly honest. Another article that came out this last month was from Magnus Vinding, Anti-Natalism and Reducing Suffering, a Case of Suspicious Convergence. So I did not get a chance to read this, unfortunately. But hey, it's a new Magnus Vinding article, new Magnus Vinding paper, so go check that out, links below. Another article that I did not get to read, unfortunately, because I literally just found it, is an article by the name of Suffering-Focused Ethics in the Infinite Universe, how we can redeem ourselves if multiverse immortality is real and subjective death is impossible. Again, did not get a chance to read this, but looks like it talks about ephilism to some extent, all kinds of different good stuff. So it looks like a very interesting article. Go check it out. I apologize again, I didn't really get a chance to look at it in any kind of depth. And there were a bunch of other articles too this month in English, all about the subject of antinatalism. Unfortunately, no time to really get into the specifics about them here, but you can find links to all of them either below and or on the Anti-Natalism International website. So go check them out. Okay, now on to new books. So actually, this is an update from the last episode. Last episode, I reported that the amazing Théophile de Giraud, the incredible Belgium author who penned one of the modern seminal works regarding antinatalism, The Art of Guillotining Procreators, in 2006, has written a new book. Now, at the time, I only knew of the book being in French. I did order a copy of the French edition, and it has arrived. I do have it. But lo and behold, I was searching on Amazon earlier this week, and what did I find? An actual English edition of the book as well. So the English edition is called The Childfree Christ, Anti-Natalism in Early Christianity. This is really important scholarship. This, looking at antinatalism in the early Christian world. It's a very important piece of history to have for Theo to have done all of this research on. He hasn't really done a whole lot of advertising for this book. I don't know why, but I'm very excited for him. It's wonderful to see not only a new Theo book, but a new Theo book in both French and English right away, hot off the presses. So I now have both versions. Go check it out, buy it on Amazon. It is very inexpensive and very worthy of being in your antinatalist book collection. Okay, now heading over to the antinatalist video world on YouTube. Tons of new videos by established antinatalist YouTubers and some of the new guys that we reported on last time. There are a couple of new antinatalist YouTube channels I want to give a shout out to right now. Sightseed, Exilado, Metafísico. I'm so sorry, I'm probably saying that wrong, but I do believe this is a Portuguese version of another new channel that we reported on last time, Metaphysical Exile. I apologize if I've gotten that wrong, but I do believe that is the case. Steve Brown and Rocky Pop Music. So welcome to the antinatalist world of YouTube, guys. Lovely to see you here. For the sake of brevity, I'm not going to list here all of the other people that have made videos this last month, but you can see a list of everybody, again, on the website, so go check that out. I want to take a quick minute, though, to point out two very interesting channels that have been making videos this month. One is Zaid Man. So Zaid Man is not an antinatalist, calls himself a non-natalist or an antinatalist. Sorry, I'm probably saying that wrong. And which he says is a category in between being a natalist and an antinatalist. I don't know if I agree with him, to be perfectly honest, but these have been very interesting videos so far, and I do look forward to seeing more of sort of where he's going with this. He doesn't seem to be antinatalist, but is trying to sort of find a middle ground, which I don't really know exists, to be perfectly honest with you. But again, it's a different kind of thing, and I think it's something that does warrant a peek into. Does definitely deserves more eyeballs than it's getting, even if you vehemently disagree. No pun intended. It's an interesting channel, so I'm excited to see more from him. Wanted to also shout out Kiki's Lab, a new YouTuber from China making videos all about antinatalism. Not too many YouTubers from China making videos about antinatalism, so that's really exciting to see. So tons of new videos to go check out, lots of new guys and gals to go subscribe to. So please go support everybody. Please subscribe to their channels, and looking forward to seeing what pops up in the months to come. Okay, now heading over to the Anti-Natalist podcast world, the Exploring Anti-Natalism podcast, my other podcast with Mark J. Maharaj. So earlier in the month, we had Masahiro Morioka on the podcast for episode 28. That was a great interview. We'll be talking more about Masahiro a little later in this episode. Episode 29 was an Anti-Natalism International Spotlight episode. I interviewed Pratima Nayak, our fellow founder of Anti-Natalism International. Please go check out both of those episodes. And today, March 1st, the same date that this episode of Antinatal News goes up, I will be releasing Mark and my interview with Nina Paley, the director of a number of very famous, incredible animated films, and also the film Thank You for Not Breeding, which was her documentary about Vehement and the Church of Euthanasia. So definitely look forward to that and go check that out. There were a number of other antinatalism related podcasts this month. I'm just going to quickly talk about two of them. The I Learned Nothing podcast, ILN, episode 126. They had a long conversation about antinatalism. Only really got to listen to a little bit of it. But I just appreciated sort of the design of their website and everything. It was kind of nice. There was also some kind of Spanish language religious podcast. I don't know how much it really got into the philosophy per se, or it was really just there seems to be a bit of a dual usage of the term antinatalismo and antinatalista in Portuguese and Spanish. So perhaps it was some of that going on. I'm mentioning it because I'd love it if one of you told me what was going on, actually. So let me know in the comments. And there were others, but again, you can see more of the podcasts that went on in February on the Anti-Natalism International website. So head there to see more. Okay, now a small piece of anti-natalism related music news. So a band by the name of Ghost Iris has released a new single called Desert Dread. They have done a number of interviews since the release of this song, and have basically made it clear that it is inspired by anti-natalism. It's a very interesting track. Go check it out. It's on YouTube right now. Okay, heading over to France, a little piece of French antinatalist news. There's a new French antinatalism website, which is really fascinating, actually. I have not sat down and hand translated it with Google Translate yet at this point. I do plan to. So I don't know a lot of the details within. But what I will say is that French antinatalism, almost has no representation. I mean, Théophile de Giraud obviously writes and speaks French, but he's from Belgium. There's just not a whole lot of French antinatalists out there that I know of. So it's really, really interesting to see a little piece of French antinatalist representation out there, a new French website. So anyway, go check it out. Okay, and now for some Greek antinatalism news. So this is really fascinating, actually. The Guardian, a journalist by the name of Katia Alchegavina, and I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing her name wrong. I've actually been in contact with Katia for a while now. I mean, she originally posted in one of the antinatalism Facebook groups that she was looking for a Greek antinatalist to interview. So she works for The Guardian, and she's working on this video series called Europe's Baby Bust. You know, population across Europe is down. People just aren't having kids, and so it's sort of an exploration. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a 5-part video series of going to different countries in Europe and sort of looking at how each country is dealing with this population bust. And a lot of countries are, of course, incentivizing procreation. They want more. They want more of their own nationality to inhabit, these places. And the population in Greece is way, way, way down, to the point where, she visits a number of islands in Greece where there's only one child. And so huge, huge, huge population decline in Greece. And during this episode, she happens to interview Elizabeth Demetrius, who we know who was actually a part of the Anti-Natalism International launch event. She's the one that made the audio clip saying the word antinatalism in Greek. So this episode includes a really great interview with Elizabeth Demetrius, who I'm also going to link to below. She has a website all about child-free living and antinatalism called ethosandempathy.org, and it's available in both English and Greek. But anyway, she does a great job, I think, in this episode, arguing her position and really giving a window into Greek antinatalism, which quite frankly is almost ethereal. There's parts of the world where the antinatalist voice really has not gotten a chance to speak out at all. And it's a very minority position, obviously, everywhere, but in some parts of the world, it's far more so than others. So the whole video is gorgeous. You just want to go to Greece so badly after watching it. It's such a beautiful place. And again, I think they both do such a great job in this interview. And I think Katia is doing such great work giving voice to anti-natalists and child-free people in these parts of the world where, you know, that movement, the voice of the movement in those places has barely gotten any light shined on them at all. So I really, really love this series. The second episode in Hungary is also out. It does not talk about anti-natalism specifically, but it does follow at least one child-free couple and the troubles that they have there, you know, because apparently Hungary is really, really aggressively wanting people to have children. And so their position is really, really frowned upon. So anyway, very, very important series from The Guardian and from Katya Olchagavina. So please go send some support and go check it out. It's a great series so far. Looking forward to the rest. Now heading to Japan for some great anti-natalist news from Japan. Okay, so an update about Masahiro Morioka, who again I interviewed last month on the Exploring Antinatalism podcast. He is the author of a book on antinatalism that has received a ton of attention in Japan. So a number of things happened this month with Masahiro's work. He did another interview with actually a psychiatrist called Rika Kayama, I think is how you pronounce her name, on why antinatalism is sort of having a rise in Japan. I did actually try to translate this whole article using Google Translate, and I have to admit that I had to stop at some point just because the translation really wasn't articulating itself particularly well with that translation tool. But I would love to see a proper English translation of this, because obviously, you know, a mashup between anybody talking about antinatalists and a psychiatrist is something that a lot of people have wanted to see for a long time. So this is really a very fascinating opportunity for Masahiro Morioka to speak about the subject. And on Twitter, you know, Masahiro Morioka posts about antinatalism on Twitter quite a lot. And actually early in the month, he posted a rather interesting photo and made a statement about the fact that antinatalism is really kind of starting to go viral in Japan, which is wonderful to see. So I'm going to read what he wrote. According to Google Trends, the Japanese translation of the word antinatalism, which is Hanshu Sho Shugi, first appeared in 2014. As far as I know, the first use of the word was in 2013 when I used it in my paper on Benatar's asymmetry, and now it's starting to go viral. And yeah, I'll link to the photograph of the, you know, the Google Analytics that he posted of, you know, the use of the term going just up and up and up and up into the stratosphere. So I think he really has done a tremendous amount to sort of awaken interest in the subject across Japan, and I think that's, you know, that's only going further and further skyward, which is great. There was also a review of the book that I will post below. A couple of other little things happened as well. Not going to talk about them here, but again, you can find them on the website. Another huge piece of news from Japan is we actually have an update on something that we talked about briefly last episode. So last episode, we had literally just during recording received a piece of intel that a new antinatalist organization had sprouted up in Japan. I actually forgot what they were calling themselves at that particular time. I don't know if you remember, Lawrence. It was something like the Association of Sentient Antinatalists, yeah, something. They have since changed their name to Association of Anti-Procreationalism in Japan, the AAPJ, and they have a YouTube channel now. They've done a couple of introduction videos. They're kind of getting their social media together. I don't have a ton of details as to like sort of what they're planning or what their goals are yet, but I can say that I will be interviewing Asaji from the AAPJ on the Exploring Antinatalism podcast in the near future. And I'm keeping a close eye on them, and I can't wait to see sort of where they go. It's very, very exciting that a new organization around antinatalism has sprung up in Japan. In addition to this, there were a metric shit ton of new videos about antinatalism from Japan this month. I mean, really, really, really quite a lot. And it does give further evidence to what Masahiro Morioka is saying. It does certainly appear like the subject is going viral in Japan. I'm not going to talk about any of those videos specifically, but once more, you can find links to just about all of them on the Anti-Natalism International website in the podcast, Anti-Natal News podcast section. So go check them out. Okay, great. Now heading over to Poland. Lots of anti-natalist news coming from Poland, as usual these days, which is wonderful to see. So, a bit of an update on our friend Miklos Starzyński. Apologies, as always, for the mispronunciation of names. So, his new book, Anti-Natalism, was featured on Radio Talk, Radio TOK FM, this month in a discussion with several people called Is Childbearing Ethical? Conversations about the book Anti-Natalism on the morality of begetting children. So this was entirely in Polish, obviously, so I really don't, unfortunately, have very many details. But this seemed to be really quite a big deal, actually. Got a lot of attention from what I understand. And it's great. It's just great to see that the book is getting so much press and so much attention. And so congratulations on that. Just want to briefly say there was also a new article about antinatalism from Poland. There were several. There was one or two of them that were behind a paywall. So again, you can see them on the Antinatalism International website, but I won't really get into them there. But there was one that seemed really quite interesting. I don't have any details, but I'm going to put it below because I do want some eyeballs on it. And if you have any information about it, please let me know what the details are in the comments. The other really big piece of antinatalist news to come from Poland this month has to do with the painter, Miguel Gwrth-enedigaeth. Again, so sorry for any mispronunciation of the name, but that's as well as my lazy American mouth can handle, I do believe. But yes, so he is this extraordinary painter from Poland, who is actually going to be having a gallery show of all of his anti-natalism inspired paintings. Now, I feel a bit silly because apparently I missed the first time this happened, but this will actually be the second time that he's showing this series of anti-natalism inspired paintings. He had one last year, right before the pandemic, and that took place at a different gallery. I just want to say that in addition to finding out about that older show, I found out that gallery had in fact produced this beautiful bound catalog of all the paintings, including, beautifully photographed of the paintings, including a long interview with him in both Polish and English. And I have a feeling this is going to be a very rare antinatalist publication, to be perfectly honest with you. It is only available on that gallery's website. I have just managed to order a copy, and I'm looking forward to getting it. So if you have any interest in picking up a copy of Miguel Gwrth-enedigaeth's antinatalism book, all about his work, go check that out on the gallery's website. But this new gallery show, I don't know if he's showing new paintings in addition to the older set of paintings that he did inspired by antinatalism last year, if it's a sort of an updated cycle of paintings around the subject. The show will open at Galeria Arteract, probably saying that wrong, in Poland. The show opens March 2nd and it runs to March 31st. So if you're in Poland and you're an antinatalist, or you're all interested in antinatalism, and you're especially interested in antinatalism's emergence as sort of a subject matter in the arts, please go to the gallery show and support Miguel, and definitely let us know sort of how it is, what the event was like. Really, really wish I could be there. It's so exciting to see another antinatalist artist get a gallery show, not only one, but two now, working within the subject of antinatalism. I'm going to put a link to the Facebook event page for the gallery show, as well as a couple of other things. He is about to, or already has done, a radio show about the event. But I wasn't able to find a lot of details about that. So hopefully an update next episode, about the show and about some of the media attention that it's getting. But yeah, very exciting. And he will also be a guest on the Exploring Antinatalism podcast. However, because of the language barrier, it will be a written interview. So more news on that as well.
All right, so before we jump into what's been happening in the wider world, we're quickly just going to cover some news, like from Anti-Natalism International itself. So just very quickly, just to let people know, we have just recently had a general hangout in our Discord channel where, you know, people come and we just generally hang out, shoot the shit, that sort of stuff. And so if you're interested in hearing about when the next one is, follow us on our social media. We'll post it on there. We are getting better at advertising, so hopefully you'll see it. The other thing that happened very recently was our founder Anugrah released his blog. So each of the founders have been putting a blog out, just introducing themselves. And this month it was Anugrah, so go check that out. Now, things coming up to look out for. On March the 21st is the next film festival info session. So we've got the world's first Anti-Natalist film festival that's happening this year in October. Obviously, it's going to be all online. And Amanda is running info sessions on it. So, you know, how it's going to work, the logistics, the deadlines, what sort of, you know, films you can submit, that sort of stuff. So that's the next info session on March the 21st. The first deadline is March the 31st, but obviously there are several deadlines. So if you missed that one, don't worry. But you will hear more about that if you go to the info session. Also, just a quick reminder, this isn't like a specific event, but a quick reminder, we run a video series on our YouTube channel of the Anti-Natalist handbook that myself and co-founder Laith wrote, and we've recorded them in video format, and we release those once a week, every week. So remember to go and check those out. And actually, if you'd like to contribute to that project of the Anti-Natalist handbook, so essentially what we do is we take excuses that people give for procreation and we rebut them. If you'd like to contribute to that, there are two ways that you could actually help out if you're interested. So we are always looking for translators because the original is in English. It's being translated into loads of different languages already, but we're always looking for more people. So if you, presumably you know English if you're listening to this, if you know another language and you feel like you can translate, get in contact with me at Lawrence, so LAWRENCE at antinatalisminternational.com. Message me there. The other way you can contribute is recording videos. So the original is obviously a written form, but we're, as I just said, Laith and I are doing them in video format as well. And we can only cover English and Arabic ourselves. So if anyone wants to, obviously, you know, your face would kind of have to be on show for this bit. So if you don't want to put your face on show, then, you know, this isn't for you. But yeah, if you have the capacity to record videos and would like to, check out the ones we've got on the YouTube channel, and then again, email me and let me know.
The last piece of ANI news we wanted to let you guys know about is that Anugrah has actually developed a dating website specifically for child-free people and anti-natalists. However, at the minute, it will only be available in India. It's called Childfree Love. It will be available at childfreelove.in. For those of you that have been following ANI, you know, we talked about in our launch event that we would be having like a dating campaign to try to get like different dating apps to include a child-free or antinatalist filter. We do still want to do that, but the opportunity came along to sort of build a site. Now, we want this to be like a global thing eventually, but we ran into a lot of very interesting kind of cultural issues about sort of how to do this kind of thing specifically. And because Anugrah is really quite a wizard with this kind of stuff, and Child Free India obviously is in India, we're sort of using this as a test platform to sort of see, you know, how it goes. And so, you know, we hope to have more news about this soon. I expect that next month of the podcast, we'll have a big update about this. But for now, just letting you guys know that it exists. It is a collaboration between Anti-Natalism International and Child Free India, and it is really quite exciting. So congratulations to Anugrah for getting it up and running, and really excited to see how it progresses.
So now we're going to zoom out to see what's been happening in sort of like the rest of the world. And the first story we wanted to cover was a court ruling that was that happened in India. Essentially, what happened was, so that the bare bones of it were the Madras High Court, Justice G.R. Swaminathan, I think I'm saying the name right, essentially permitted the termination of a pregnancy of a 15-year-old. But the reason that this was particularly significant was because the rationale for the decision that was kind of underlined was the court made the following statement: if a choice is given to the fetus now in the womb of the minor, it would definitely proclaim that it would not wish to be born. So upon first glance, this seems like very anti-natally. They said that they came to this conclusion by putting themselves in the shoes of the unborn child, and determined that it wouldn't be in the child's best interest to come into existence. The court stated that while we do celebrate life, the foremost spiritual prayer is that there should be liberation from the cycle of births and deaths. Now, before anyone does get too excited, as anti-natally as this sounds, if you read the entire article, and I'm sure there's more information elsewhere, they cite the reason that the child would not want to be born. They cite sort of external factors to come to that conclusion. So it's not really an opposition to procreation in and of itself. You know, they didn't make the proclamation that life itself is an imposition. It was more the fact that, you know, a medical examination determined that continuing the pregnancy would damage the mother's mental, physical health. That would then have an impact on the baby as well. You know, the girl was very young and there were all these situations going on. So it on the face of it, it seems very antinatally, but it was more just a case of like, you know, this kid is going to be born into certain conditions, etc.
Even with that, though, this does set a really great precedent, I think. I love the fact that perhaps young girls who are raped, who find themselves in this position there, aren't going to have to worry about this, because that's not the same. Such a leniency does not exist in other parts of the world where this similar situation happens, and there have been instances where, you know, these children are forced to give birth to other children, and so I while the conclusion of this might not be the most antinatalist thing ever, I love at least where it is in its halfway point, and even them citing was it I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact phrase, but it was the prayer of non-existence being not non-existence, but breaking the cycle literally of their sentience, essentially, you know, as being sort of the highest wish or the highest form of achievement. Well, that does set some pretty remarkable precedent. The only other thing I would like to say is that I would love to see, you know, Childfree India maybe contact this person involved that made this ruling, because I just think a really interesting discussion could happen there. No, I just thought this was a fascinating case, and I really appreciated reading it, and I'm just happy for the girl and for the unborn child, because obviously this was the right decision to make, for sure. Even not speaking as an antinatalist, this was certainly the correct outcome.
Yeah. So, the next story we wanted to cover was actually about a Russian millionaire. So this Russian millionaire, and actually, I'm not actually sure if she's the millionaire or her husband is, but between them, they're millionaires. Christina Öztürk, I don't know if I've pronounced that right. Essentially, she had a piece done on her recently. I'm not sure if there have been pieces done on her previously, but she recently had one done on her about the fact that she's addicted to having children, or at least she says so anyway. You know, I'm sure it's not like an actual addiction, but it's more like a colloquial use of the term. So currently she has 11 children. All of them are biologically her own, but she's actually only given birth to one of them. I think the eldest one. The others have been born through surrogate. And basically her and her husband have said that they are basically, money isn't an issue. They are willing to spend, they put a figure of £800,000 sterling on surrogates for having babies for them. They said that they wanted 105 babies. I think they just plucked that number right out of their ass. But yeah, Christina, she doesn't have a relationship with any of the surrogates apparently, because it would lead to complications down the line. But she does like come up with diet and nutrition plans, to basically saying to them, you know, you need to adhere to this during your pregnancy. So yeah, she's essentially is sort of like you know, it's cash for flesh sort of thing. It's super weird. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't really know what to say about it. It's just like, it's so.
I don't know really what to say about it either. I mean, obviously I hate it, and obviously I think it's disgusting, and it's a form of biological terrorism, essentially. I don't know. I mean, obviously she has the money, and that's not the issue, and I'm sure that's not why she's doing it. But I do wonder what, you know, because Russia does have, like many countries, incentive programs for people to have more and more and more and more children. So I don't know if that's a piece of what's going on here.
Well, she's Russian, but I don't think she actually lives in Russia. I think they might be in somewhere in the United States, because it has more lenient laws about like surrogacy and stuff.
Yeah.
I think her husband is Turkish, maybe, but I might get that wrong.
Okay. Well, I stand corrected on that then. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, it's horrible. The whole surrogacy thing is an unbelievable blight. You know, there's all kinds of horror stories of, you know, these made to order children that end up having, you know, genetic problems or physical health problems, mental health problems, and they end up basically being abandoned because they're faulty products, essentially. I know that's not what's going on here, but you know, you have to wonder at what point that will happen. I don't know why I have nothing to say about this story, because
it's just so bizarre.
Yeah, it just sort of breaks my head a little bit. Because I mean, how do you treat? Because obviously, it is an addiction for her. Like it seems almost like a compulsive kind of thing. And how do you treat that in somebody? Like, how do you approach that in somebody, especially when? I mean, we would really have, I think more people would have a problem with what she's doing if she wasn't wealthy. But because she is wealthy, it sort of gets this pass as not necessarily being seen as wrong, or not necessarily being seen as an addiction, because she's not, there's no subsidies, I guess, going to her, and there's no society isn't having to pay
it's
price,
not like state
basically
funded.
Not state funded. Yeah, exactly. But obviously, I mean, I think in a circumstance like this, it's going to kind of come down to what the kids think of it years later. You know, to that, I think is really going to be the only possible kind of comeuppance at this point. I mean, I know I would have a problem with that if I found out that was my origin, that I was a product of somebody's compulsive addiction to create more life for no purpose. That would certainly irk me, and perhaps several other of my 100 brothers and sisters.
Yeah. Now we're going to zoom over to Poland, because I'm sure a lot of people have sort of heard what's going on there. Just as well, I'll do a quick introduction to what the thing is, and then I'll give some context. So the Justice Ministry of Poland recently announced that they are considering introducing personal rooms for women to cry in when they give birth to a child with defects, deformities, however you want to put it. The reason that this is a thing is because of the wider context. So recently, the Polish government passed legislation that essentially forbids the termination of a pregnancy upon discovering the fetus has some sort of abnormality or, yeah, you know, that sort of thing. The article that we're covering is by Unilad. Now, I don't know how reliable Unilad are, and they didn't cite their sources, but they say that abortions, 98% of them in Poland are made up by abortions because the fetus has some sort of abnormality. Since the legislation was passed, there's been like a lot of debate between the main political parties, apparently, on how they should support the women that are being forced to give birth because of this legislation. And that is where the recent announcement from the Justice Ministry comes from, is that essentially, yeah, they want to make rooms available for the women to go cry in. So the rooms are proposed to be part of sort of hospices, which are basically set up solely for women who are affected by this legislation. And at these hospices, they will also be provided with what's said to be special psychological care and advice on what to do next as well. Which sounds a bit sort of like, you know, we're going to force you to give birth, but here's a leaflet.
Just disgusting. I mean, I cannot imagine a response more glib, more it's such an aggressive, nasty, heartless, cruel suggestion. You know, I don't, you know, it could almost be something that the Onion would come up with, you know, but the fact that this is a real statement by a real governmental body as a way to, you know, comfort the women forced into this situation is just disgusting. So the good news is that they did come under some fire for this.
They have.
Yeah, they've definitely come under some fire for this. But I don't know if that fire is enough to burn the rooms down, so to speak. I don't know if they are, you know, planning on going ahead with this. But obviously the situation in Poland is devastating. I mean, this abortion ban is just devastating. And my heart goes out to everybody that's affected by this. And, you know, it is interesting that antinatalism really is kind of having a moment in Poland right now, as we spoke about, you know, earlier in the podcast. So what a weird juxtaposition that antinatalism is finding such a voice within Poland, and then on top of it, all of these challenges, all of these obstacles to getting, you know, procreation recognized for what it really is. And just, you know, when you hear suggestions like this, you just the lack of actually giving a damn for living things becomes so clear, you know, because you can't actually care about suffering and make a suggestion like this and really care about life. You can't actually be pro-life and make a suggestion like this. It's just, in my opinion.
No. I totally get it. It just seems so like there's a bunch of people sitting in a room, like a bunch of politicians, and they pass this legislation. And just before the secretary walks out to process the legislation, turns around and says, you know, should we actually provide any support for these people in any way? And they just sort of flick their wrist to go, just give them a room to cry in or something like that.
Yeah.
Very like flippant.
Flippant. Exactly the right word that I was trying to find earlier. It's just a flippant, nasty, glib, awful thing to say. They should be ashamed of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They should go to their rooms to cry about it. I'll cut that out. Yeah, go on the naughty step, right?
Okay, so now we've got to the section that we still don't really have a name for, but each month we basically we pick a story which is a bit more like on the ridiculous side. So last week we covered the YouTuber who, was flipping out about being called anti-natalist with as little clothes on as possible. And this month, we found a story of a lady in Indonesia by the name of Siti Zainar, which I may be saying wrong, who claims that she was made pregnant by a gust of wind. The incident happened when she was praying, and a gust of wind sort of blew through her house and sort of into her vagina, as it were.
Let me guess. The wind was Jesus.
The wind was Jesus. So she says that about 15 minutes after she began to feel pains and her stomach was expanding, and then only 1 hour later, she was rushed to a community health clinic, and 1 hour later she gave birth. The director of the clinic said that she likely experienced, and I agree with him, a cryptic pregnancy, as it were, where she just didn't know she was pregnant, rather than the weather making her pregnant. After she gave birth, the police actually went around to her house. I don't know whether she'd returned home by this point or not, but the police went around to her house to investigate the situation because they wanted to quell rumors that were going around the town. So, yeah, I don't know what you think about that, Amanda.
I have some thoughts. Well, so listen, this is a tough story in some respects because there's a lot we don't know. This is a woman living in a highly restrictive Muslim country. I don't know what happened. I don't know whether she was raped and she doesn't know how to psychologically deal with it. So bizarre situations, are the only explanation. I don't know whether it's like an Agnes of God kind of situation. I don't know whether she's just trying to pull a fast one on everybody, so that but obviously women that find themselves in these kind of positions, yes, like rumors start happening. They start getting, who knows what can happen. In some cultures, people, women can get blamed for being a witch, or they can, get seen as some sort of nasty person for having this happen to them. And we don't really know what happened to her. So I want to give every respect to her because we don't really know the full situation. But obviously just the absurdity is, we're living in 2021 and, we're still living in a world where not everybody really understands necessarily how procreation works, and that's just a sad piece of our reality. So the story is really funny because obviously, hey, Jesus fart wind made me pregnant. Ha ha ha. Did the infant live, or is it like because a lot of cryptic births, like the child is like kind of, it's like stillborn, right? But you can still sort of have the contractions, from what I understand.
As far as I'm aware, the child did survive, unless I was super blind when I read the article, and they said that the child didn't survive. I'm pretty sure that the child was fine,
Okay,
or at least is alive.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. It's hilarious just in terms of a headline. I don't know if it's going to be hilarious in terms of her reality, what kind of stigma she's going to receive because of this, or, the child as well, whether, is the child going to grow up in a society where it's sort of seen as I don't know whether it's a boy or a girl, that's why I'm saying it, but, is it seen as some sort of, abomination because the wind done give it life, or, who knows?
Half wind, half human.
Half wind, half human. Yes.
The other thing that I found interesting, although they didn't really cover it that much in the article, so I don't know too much, is that the police went round there specifically to try and address rumors that were going around, which suggests the sort of lack of knowledge of procreation in the area, because if I don't know, I can speak from, if this happened in London and a story like that went round, everyone would be like, well, yeah, like That's obviously untrue.
Right.
But the fact that rumors were going around suggests that people think that, you know, they were spreading it around like, oh, did you hear this thing actually happened?
Yeah,
So,
like it makes you wonder, like, did other women think, hey, I'm pregnant by Win too? Or, you know,
well, it's just that, you know, it's just that the fact that if it's going around as a rumor, presumably it means it's somewhat believable to people, or maybe I'm misreading the article. And I just find it astonishing that that level of absurdity can circulate and be somewhat believable. It just shows to the lack of understanding of how biology works.
No, exactly. That's the point I was trying to make earlier too. It's just that's the real tragedy, I think, of this story, is that, yeah, again, like we are living in 2021, and there are lots of places in the world where how you get pregnant and how you cannot become pregnant are still sort of up to the imagination and not totally solid. And, you know, granted, cryptic birth is not necessarily the most common thing. Like, I wouldn't necessarily blame somebody for not understanding that concept. I mean, even in a Western country, you know, in a more educated country, like, a lot of people don't know that that's a thing. But generally, people don't come up with the Win done it.
Yeah.
You know, like, even if they don't have that piece of information to.
It was the volcano.
The volcano did it. Sure. Vesuvius. Yeah. It was Mount Vesuvius.
Etna's had my eye on him.
So watch out for strong gusts of winds, you guys.
Yeah, exactly. So that's everything we've got for this episode. Thank you so much for listening to this second episode of Anti-Natal News. Just to remind you again, we're always looking for more news stories. So please do send them to antinatalnews@gmail.com. The podcast episode all available on the Anti-Natalism International YouTube channel, and you can also catch them on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and more. We're working on a few more places. And of course, remember to follow us on Twitter @Antinatalnews for daily updates. But thank you again, and see you next month. See you later, everyone.
Everybody.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.